Welcome to the Trashcats Trashcast. I'm Richard.
I'm Steven.
And today we're talking about existentialism.
Oh man, I'm going to try to read this intro. Without sounding too cheesy.
You make it sound nice and natural.
Most mornings when I wake up, there is a moment where I feel an intense morning. It is rarely a thought, just an intense feeling. I've slowly managed to make these moments shorter, but it is always there, and I imagine it always will be. The best thing I can compare this to is like when you look at the stars at night. It's the opposite. It's the meaningless of the void. Each day, as my brain adjusts and I get my caffeine and nicotine in me, that feeling fades and I remember my purpose. I have work to do and things to make. We all yearn to fulfill our own essence of being. This is our battle between hope and despair, our pursuit between meaning and purpose. We all feel this at different times and in different ways, but I know it is something that we all feel. Compounded by our own freedoms and lack thereof, this is the existential dread we all face in our absurd existence. This is existentialism.
Very well said.
The void is calling.
The void is calling us, and we are here.
How's your week been, man?
To answer the call. It's been all right. It's been mostly uneventful again. I think this is the third week in a row I've had that comment, except the Bengals are going to the Super Bowl. Not that I usually give a shit about sports, but that's pretty cool.
It's something.
Did you see that Cincinnati Public Schools marked it as rearranged their calendars and all the kids are getting off school?
All right.
The day after?
I have two feelings. Any reason we give kids a day off school, I'm fucking there for it. Fuck yeah. But that is some bullshit. Like, what kind of backwards bullshit, brain dead kind of thinking is that? If you're real good at sports, you don't go to school. Cool. It's stupid as fuck. Right?
Well, I mean, it's got nothing to do with being good at sports. It's
support your city. It's nationalism.
I don't think that's what it is either.
That's nationalistic thinking. City pride. We're saying our city's better than all those other teams that didn't make it, so we're not even go to school today.
Well, we all know that that's not actually true about Cincinnati. I mean, they might think that they're better than everyone else, but anyone that's lived there and moved somewhere and been anywhere else.
We're a dirt city just scraping our way to join the modern world.
That's actually a really good way to put it too. I do have very fond memories of Cincinnati, but that's a very fair way to put that.
That's exact. We're 10 years behind, man.
How's your week been?
It's cool. It's cool for the kids, but I do think it's pretty fucking stupid. My week's been stupid, but fine. Got a little bit of art going on. Working on something I'm really excited about right now. It's some cotton candy cloud shit. It feels like a clown's graveyard in the sky. And I'm pretty excited about that. But aside from that, it's just been normal shit. Nothing too good, nothing terrible. Honorable mentions?
I wanted to. I meant to talk about in my week that mirror that I've been talking about for the last 3-4 months. I finally finished that.
It turned out awesome.
Thank you. It turned out differently than what I expected because the supplies I was using didn't work the way I wanted them to. But it's very colorful. It's kind of very different than what I usually make. But I'm sure we'll post that in the Instagram too.
Yes.
Honorables. I wanted to shout out to Austin Farwell again. He reached out to us the last time that we played. We talked about him in an episode, and he told me whatever we want to use his music for, whatever, to go right for it. So we're going to jump on that, and we're going to play one of his songs at the end. It's one of his newer pieces called "Evening Sky," and I think everyone's going to like it.
Yeah, he's very talented. It's so cool when the artists we reach to tell us that it's cool to use their stuff like that, and it's a beautiful song. So
I feel like it's kind of reaching out to all these artists. I feel like each time you do it a lot more often than I do, but even when I do, I feel like it's like, hey, you're really talented and really great at this thing. We make this dumb podcast and we mention your stuff. And they're like, cool, I'll check out the show. And it's like, that could go one of two ways.
Yep. And a lot of times we don't hear back after that. Yeah. Okay, I got a couple. So we did our taxidermy episode last week, which was very fun. And I found this right after, of course. This is just an article titled, "When You Go to the Zoo, You Are Breathing the DNA of the Animals Inside of It." So that smell when you go to the zoo, you know, it's very strong. So,
dude, it's within like a good half mile of the zoo in Cincinnati. I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
You always knew when you were nearby because you and it's just pungent.
Dude, there were a couple times I was in Clifton and a lion got loose. Do you remember that?
I remember at least one time, yeah.
Yeah, holy shit. So researchers went to the zoo and they used a small fan to blow air into a filter. They analyzed what the filter had caught, and they found DNA from the critter's breath, saliva, fur, or feces. And it's something like they put it in one location, and they got over 25 different animal species DNA. So when you're walking around the zoo, visiting different shit, you're literally becoming the animals. You're breathing them in.
See, now are you pro zoo now?
No. But I like the idea of that a lot. That's very cool. All right. Next one. If anyone hasn't checked out, I think we both watched this. It's new on Netflix. Arcane.
Yeah, really good.
And I will preface it by saying, League of Legends is trash, and I don't like most anime. But this shit is actually cool as fuck. This art is outstanding. It's not my type of thing at all, and I still fucking loved it. It's pretty good storytelling, but the art is like, it's the future of what a lot of animation is going to look like.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's really well done. Colors are excellent. The use of saturated and muted colors in different parts of it provide more storytelling within just the animation of it.
It's both 3D and like illustrative.
Yeah,
combined very
well. Dope. And I don't know shit about League of Legends. I have no background knowledge on any of that, but I enjoyed the series a lot. So
as soon as I saw the first 15 minutes, the first thing I said to Sarah was, "I bet this cost $1 million an episode. At least it's at least $500,000 to $1 million an episode." There is the art, the level of detail in the art, and just the animation being so smooth and like abstract and beautiful. It's an expensive show. Supposedly it was in production for 6 years, so they spent a lot of fucking money on it. Third honorable mention, real quick. One of our online internet friends started a Discord called the Art Club, and it's been a very cool space. Right now it's like 20 artists or so, and some really cool stuff on there. So we just wanted to shout it out, and anyone who wants to reach out to us on any of the platforms or on our email at trashcatstrashcast@gmail.com. Hit us up. We'll send an invite, join the art club, share some art.
It's very inclusive. There's a lot of, share your stuff, but there's a, thing for like musical art and all kinds of different, sub pieces on there.
Very cool stuff. Last one, super quick. This is, I lost the title. This is a beautiful painting by the artist Rainier Lanes titled The Poet.
It is a beautiful painting.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
This is one I just randomly stumbled on Reddit, and it's just beautiful. It's super textured, kind of reminds me of Monet a little bit, but it's just a figure of a person standing in a field, very abstract, but they're clear. And you just see kind of their outline as they're becoming the field and flowers around them. And it's just so beautiful.
I think this is a really interesting piece because I like some of the, heavy texture, oil work or whatever. I think this is interesting to me because I really didn't even notice how abstract a lot of it is. and I don't, because my mind was looking at the figure of the man, which, for an, somewhat impressionistic style, it's very detailed, and, your brain's trying to comprehend the details of that and how that works.
Yeah.
And the background becomes almost realistic in itself, I think partially due to the high texture on it that's, casting its own shadows and shit.
Yeah, I love seeing how the different, flowers and aspects kind of like blur and like change shapes through the person's body.
Yeah.
Everything lines up so well. It has that, like, when you look at a water droplet, that slight displacement of things.
The reflection of the sky on the back of the calves and like the lower back.
Yeah.
Very cool detail that brings a lot of realism into it.
Yeah, it's so subtle, but it makes such a big difference. So that one was just a pleasure. I felt like I had to share that. So a lot of honorable mentions today, but a lot of cool stuff. So should we get into existentialism?
Yeah.
So in research for this episode, we came across a lot of different definitions, and many of which felt either pretty abstract or like overly focused on particular theories or schools of thought. So like researching existentialism, a lot of what you would find are the different thinkers and their specific philosophies. So we kind of wanted to start by reading our own definition. And this is something I was just trying to boil it down as best I could to get a better feel for what we're talking about. So existentialism, the questioning of meaning and purpose in a reality of absurd, meaningless, and cruel freedoms.
I really like that, the way you put that. The Wikipedia says existentialist thinkers frequently explore issues related to the meaning, purpose, and value of human existence. And what I feel like what boils down to me more for existentialism is, you ever have like a conversation with a toddler and they just keep asking why?
Yes.
But why? But why? That's basically kind of what existentialists, that thought pattern is. It's like, but why though? Like what does it mean?
Yeah, it's a deep level of curiosity, wonder, and frustration, like that of a child.
Yes.
So to live is to suffer. To survive is to find meaning in the suffering. That's Nietzsche, of course.
One of the main tropes that came up in existentialism, one of the things that existentialists seem to put a lot of emphasis on is authenticity, which we've kind of talked about a little bit before. I think some of it goes into the shadow realm part of it, like being your true self. Mm-hmm. But even like just you're acting without consequences. Like think of the idea of like, how would you act if there were no consequences to your actions? Like, would you do shit that you know otherwise would be morally wrong, kind of thing? Like how morally wrong is it? There's like the, if you go all in, like, well, there's no purpose to anything. Like I'm just going to fucking party it up and do whatever. That's like the Dionysus side of it. Like the logic that normally controls us and tells us like, well, actually that's a shitty thing to do, or I can't do that because that's like the Apollo thing of it.
Yeah, you ought not to. Odd statement shit. I know for myself that's a huge, I think, reason of why I often feel the way I do is because I'm living outside of, I guess, my own morals or how I want to live. But,
right.
There's consequences, right?
Mm-hmm. Also found this interesting. This is also from the wiki. Human beings, through their own consciousness, create their own values and determine the meaning to their life. This view is in contradiction to Aristotle, who taught that essence precedes individual existence. So the meaning of that being that, like, so Aristotle would teach that before you were even born, your soul or the things that make you you were already there. It was already decided. So the idea of, authenticity in existentialism says that your individual existence precedes your essence. You are formed when you are formed.
Yeah, and I've been reading about that a little bit too, and like the idea of essence and form and being true to like what we actually are. I feel like it's harder than it sounds like type of thing. But
yeah.
But I also like the idea that, so how you were saying maybe Aristotle said that our essence was predetermined to some extent, right? I like the idea of through living, we determine what that essence is.
Yeah, and that's the more existentialist point of view, is that, you through, your interactions with the world, with, the universe kind of thing, like you become who you are through that manner. It's not a predetermined thing.
Yeah.
And there is stuff that, that there's stuff that like the limitations of that where like you can't choose where you're born or, who your parents are kind of thing. Like you can't choose those things there, other than, found family, I guess. But, there are certain factual things that you just cannot change, that when you look at it like that, it's, that we'll get into that more later. That's a whole separate part of the absurd.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole, I don't know. I feel like I feel so much more comfort in finding that, like, and thinking that, I get to choose who I am. That's what, even when in the beginning, in your intro, you mentioned like the feeling of mourning for you is opposite to that of looking at the stars. But really, when I feel like looking at the stars makes me feel smaller, like I'm in the void kind of thing.
Honestly, I sometimes like I get a sense of wonder from it, but often I think looking at the stars makes me sad too. Like it do you get that? Where like sometimes
yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes it's empowering, and then other times it's like, this is all so dumb, or like what a waste. Like there's such beautiful things, but everything is such a waste. Or
I think it's the greatest reminder of how insignificant you and everything that you do and everything that's ever been done on this planet really is.
I feel that a lot.
Even within that factual thing, like it sometimes, like you said, that information feels empowering to me, and sometimes it feels very distressing.
Yeah. Real quick, before you go into the absurdness of it all, I do feel like it's worth mentioning. So like how you're saying there's the level of choice, right? Like
right.
We're facing this absurd bullshit reality, but we have a certain level of choice. And with that, in existentialism, there's a certain level of responsibility, right?
Right, yeah.
Where like, for better or worse, we have a level of control over what we do, what our true essence is, and where we attribute meaning. So there's like, there's it's easy to like not have any, or to feel like you have no responsibility for what your life is, but to be like at your most free or whatever, there's a lot of responsibility.
Right. So the absurd, so in philosophy, the absurd refers to the conflict between the human tendency to seek some kind of inherent value and meaning in life. And within that, the human inability to find these with any certainty. So the universe and the human mind do not separately cause the absurd, but rather the absurd arises by the contradictory nature of the two existing simultaneously. the idea that, you know, those two things in and of themselves are fine, but when they're incompatible with each other, to try to find meaning in something that otherwise has no meaning. Mm-hmm. And that's where it becomes like, it's different for everyone. Everyone's meaning to life is different. I feel like that was like a philosophical thing, like an unanswerable question when I was young, and people would talk about philosophy and like, but what's the meaning of life? And it was like almost like a joke. And it's like it's, you know, I think that maybe that is part of the joke. It's just, there is no one answer to that. But I don't know. I always felt like it was like, that's a stupid question. Like, obviously we want to find it, but it's so different for every person.
Right. I like, so you hear in like debates or just in other settings too, the term bad faith, right? And mm-hmm. I really like the idea of bad faith, meaning that you aren't living in truth to your true essence.
Right.
So like in facing the absurdness of our lives, being untrue to who we are is living in bad faith. And that when you're facing the absurd in bad faith, everything goes wrong. It doesn't go right, whatever. You know?
Right. And so this is also, I'm going to quote the wiki a lot in this. We're going to do a lot of discussion in between, but I found there's a long wiki, but I found some cool parts to bring out of it. So the notion of the absurd contains the idea that there is no meaning in the world beyond what meaning we give it. The meaninglessness also encompasses the amorality or unfairness of the world. This can be highlighted in the way it opposes the traditional Abrahamic religious perspective, which establishes that life's purpose is the fulfillment of God's commandments. This is what gives meaning to people's lives. To live the life of the absurd means rejecting a life that finds or pursues specific meaning for man's existence, since there is nothing to be discovered.
Yeah, it's like, how great would life be without the absurd? Like, what good is the highs without the low kind of thought?
Right. And I feel like I somewhat agree with the idea of like, stop trying to find, I don't know, stop searching so hard for a general meaning of life. I like the idea, though, like everyone, you need purpose.
Yes.
We need purpose to be here. It would be too easy to, fucking off yourself.
Yes.
If, because I mean, even in the, looking at the stars thing, like that feeling of being so insignificant and like, what does it even matter? Like, what does anything mean? And that's, for me, I've mentioned this before. We've talked about, free will and whatnot, but the knowing that gives me the empowerment when I feel like, well, the fact that there is no universal meaning to any of this, that makes me feel like, well, then all of my choices that I make are mine to make for me. It's like, I'm doing this for me. If I'm doing something because, or if I'm prohibiting myself from doing something because it would be, I would be a dick for doing it. I do that for me because I don't want to feel like a dick.
I think a lot of times it boils down, like, it's as simple as just wanting to feel good. Like, there's so many ways to like frame it different.
Right.
Like purpose, true happiness, being a good person. In the end, all of those things are trying to like maximize your best feel good, right?
Right.
For me, it's been drugs a lot of the time, but it's short acting, hard to
That's
keep
an
up.
instant gratification that doesn't last long.
Yeah, unless you have nearly unlimited resources, and ideally I'm going to go back at some point. But in the meantime, like, I need other shit that fulfills me. So you go for like the long lasting things. You do like making things that feel good, whatever, friendships, all those different things, living to morals or whatever. Those type of like moral systems to feel fulfillment, all of that is like finding ways that make you feel the most good, because you're making yourself feel like you're a good person, and that gives you fulfillment, having purpose to make you feel good. It's all whatever we frame it under, different lies we can tell ourselves, like that we feel the max amount of happiness. It's all emotional.
Yeah. And here's an example I just thought of that I feel like I haven't thought about in a few years now. Actually, it's not a few years. This just happened last year. Jesus Christ, time is crazy. So when my last restaurant I was working at, when they went under, and I knew they were going under, and I'm like trying to organize shit because I know that someone's got to go through all this shit, and I was trying to make it as easy as possible on the next person. Mostly also because I didn't have shit else to do because the restaurant was completely dead, and that's why they were closing. But there was one of the things was like going through some of the inventory of some of the tools and shit we had, and I didn't find it. It was just, one of the tools that we use all the time was this fucking Cuisinart food processor, and it's a nice one. It's borderline commercial level, but it's a residential unit. It's like $100 food processor, and I've wanted one for a really long time. I've always wanted one exactly like this one. I mean, if I could have it my way, I'd have a RoboCoupe, but those are thousands of dollars. But I thought to myself, they're never in here. No one's gonna realize it if this is just gone.
Yeah, I can yank this.
Yeah, I could gank this, no fucking problem. And I dwelled upon that for a minute, like, man, I could. But the minute someone says, when I start to think about it too much, it would be like, but then I'm going to still kind of feel like an asshole about it. It's like it's a drop in the bucket for the owners of the restaurant to, once again, have no fucking idea that it's there. They're never in the restaurant.
All right, so here's the question.
Yeah.
I've stolen shit before.
Yeah.
All right. Would the amount of emotional feel-good of owning that object, is that greater than like the negative of like the crack in your character of stealing? Because that's basically the math problem.
Yeah,
all
exactly.
Selfish,
That's exactly the math that it is, and I came to the conclusion that no, it wasn't worth it.
That's fair.
And it's been about a year and a half now, almost 2 years. And since then, does it feel good to know that I didn't take that? Sure. But man, I really could have, and I could have used that food processor. I could have a lot of, I definitely think back on it a lot. And man, I should have taken that goddamn food processor. Now I have to go out and spend $100 fucking dollars.
See, but if the math was slightly different, if this person was slightly farther attached from you, if there was a smaller chance they could ever find out it was you to put guilt on you, if like you found out they didn't have to pay, like all these things.
Oh yeah, I would have taken it.
Yeah.
If the math was different, yeah. And not out of a place of like I'm not gonna rob somebody. Like I'm not gonna steal shit from a person, from their house or from their car or whatever the fuck. I always thought that's really shitty.
Yeah.
Stealing from corporations is easier on my moral scale.
For sure.
Not something that I do a lot. I'm sure I've, stolen shit before, but it wasn't like I've never shoplifted. I got my sister got in trouble for that so much when I was a kid that it was easy for me to be like, okay, that's fucking stupid.
Yeah, I never really got into it much because I was always accused of shoplifting. So,
you look like a shoplifter.
Exactly. Like I've probably been, I'd say over 100 times have I been pulled over like in a store by a security guard or somebody working there. Where it's like, I'm never going to get away with this. So fuck it.
I remember going to the mall with somebody one time when we were younger, And we were walking around Hot Topic, and we were standing. I was looking at shit for a minute, and they said, "Let's get out of here. Let's get the fuck out of here." And I was like, "All right, sure." And we left, and they told me later on, they were like, whoever was in the shop, they were like eyeing us real hard because they thought that we were about to steal some shit. I was like, "Oh, but did you?" And they were like, "No." I was like, I mean, I get it. It's fucked up, but like, and they, they were being, they were pissed about it because they were being stereotyped. And like, I get it. I definitely get that. It's a shitty thing to do.
To me, I would always get pissed off when one of the people I was with were stealing.
Yeah, that made me so goddamn mad. It only happened to me one time that I was aware of. And it was like, man, fuck, dog. Like, that could have been, like, they take both of you to jail. Yeah. It's not just you.
Where I'm fine if you're stealing. I'll look out for you and everything. But give me the heads up.
Yeah, let me fucking know.
Make the choice. Yeah, like, I get to make that choice, too.
And it's like, oh, I didn't think you'd be cool with it. It's like, I'm not cool with it, but...
I would have been like, I was cool with it.
It's like, I would have stayed out in the fucking car, like, whatever.
They need you as the distraction.
That was at least, I don't know how true this is. Oh no, it was the opposite way. I'm remembering it wrong. So when my sister first got busted for shoplifting, it was her and her friend. There was a part of us where we thought that it was her friend that was shoplifted. Then we find out later on that, like, no, it was my sister doing it all, and her friend had no fucking idea.
That's solid.
And her friend still had to fucking deal with the cops and all that shit. And I was like, I mean, they're minors, so they got a slap on the wrist, and it was whatever.
Yeah.
They weren't allowed back in Claire's or whatever the fuck. I really, that was the main thing that people were in when I was in that teen court program back when I was 17. The number one thing that girls would be in there for was Claire's. Was almost every single girl in there was there for stealing from Claire's.
That's hilarious. Why? Oh, man.
They got to get those fucking jelly bracelets and shit, man.
Oh, my God.
And them fucking barrettes.
All right, here's a question. When did you figure out... All right, I feel very strongly in the sense of purpose. Like, without it, it is only despair, right? I believe that so strongly.
Yeah.
And I feel like most of the people around me have no fucking idea what their purpose is. And
right.
It's fucking, like, sad and not in a way... I don't feel like I feel like I do and don't have it figured out more, but I understand the feeling of feeling, like, so lost, right? And you want people to, like, have that feeling. And
right.
It's something you can't show anyone. Like, when did you start figuring out purpose shit?
Through culinary, actually, I started finding purpose in it. And what I realized was, first it was like, oh, this is what I'm here to do is make food and work on food. And then I realized how morbid even that is, because I feel like purpose is beyond what you do for money.
Yeah,
it's so much more than, I feel like there's a lot of people that think that, or like they haven't found their calling, or they haven't found their, yeah. And it's like, that's a dumb way to look at it. You can't look at it that way. You have to realize that, like, this is your entire life. It shouldn't be based around just the thing that you do for money, which most people don't have the freedom of doing a thing that they enjoy for money, whereas I do. I enjoy.
There's two sides to that, though.
Mm-hmm.
All right, because there is a part where, like, our society is fucked, and people don't have, like, the time, means, resources to figure out, like, or just aren't able to, like, find what those things are.
Right.
And then there's also a part of it, like, I know so many fucking people that are, like, poor, fucked up, their life's a shit, right? But they never fucking ever tried to figure out anything to fulfill themselves.
There is also that, yes.
There's like, it's the battle between hope and despair. It's like, no one's looking for purpose, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you said that in a lot of the circles we've been around, you'd be the biggest fucking loser. Like, all you give a fuck about anything? Like,
when I was before my grandfather passed away, he used to say all the time, when I grow up, I want to, do this and shit like that. The one he quoted the most was when he was young, he always wanted to be a cowboy.
that's a good one.
He's like, so when I grow up, I want to be a cowboy. But I ask people that, especially at work, when it's like you're just getting to know coworkers more and stuff like that. It's like, so when you grow up, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to, like, what's your goals? What are your, like, what do you want for yourself kind of thing? Most people have a little something, like, I think about doing this, or I kind of like doing this, or it was always the people that would, and a surprising number of people that answer, like, I don't know. And it's like, you haven't thought about like goals or anything. And they're like, no.
Well, here's the thing is half of those people really have no fucking idea. And then the other half are just fucking liars because they're embarrassed. Like they don't want to say that
and that's
they
sad.
have it.
That's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
The people that have no goals or no drive, like it so surprises me. Like, I don't know, like I know that I feel like my purpose, I've realized, like, I love being part of my community thing. Like, I really enjoy the last couple jobs I've had where not only am I preparing the food for people, but I'm talking to my customers, and I feel like I have like, so all these regulars that I see once a week or twice a week, it's like almost a ritual thing where you see them and you're excited to see them because they're, like, how's your week been? How's your fucking mom doing? And it's like when they show old school, like, mom and pop shops and stuff and like old movies and shit, like that's like a weird trope, but it's very real because you start asking people about like their, you're meeting people. I guess that's this is what meeting people is like, and I'm not used to it. At least not in that way. I usually, when I meet people, it's always been through work. But yeah, being a part of the community has been a huge part of my meaning for life is like, building connections with people from the perspective of someone who has a skill or has a trade, not just having the skill or having, this trade that I do is my purpose, but I don't know. I feel like that's a huge part of it, at least. And of course there's, the family and home shit too is a whole different bag of worms to open when you look at like what the, not that my family is a bag of worms to open, but the idea of, finding purpose within that, at least finding a reason to still be here.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest thing that's ever kept me from, committing suicide was thinking like, fuck, this is going to be so much stress for my family.
See, honestly, I feel like I've said that same line a lot, but when I'm actually thinking about that, I don't think about anyone. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I might not have ever gotten that far, maybe. Yeah, I don't know, but I do think the existentialism and like suicide, it's the same scale, right?
Absolutely.
It's all this gradient of hope and despair and life and death and like where you fall on it, and purpose is your answer to the existentialism.
Yeah.
If you want, even if it is a lie, right? Or it's just max happiness.
There's a quote from, he's a philosopher from the early 20th century, Albert Camus. He says, the only one truly serious philosophical problem is suicide. And it's because like the awareness of the meaningless of life, it brings on so much of that. I think he was referring to the story of Sisyphus.
Yeah.
Sisyphus. Yeah, the continuously laboring away at a never-ending task. We continue, we thrive despite the mundane meaningless of it all.
Yeah.
And within the absurdity thing, the ultimate hero of absurdism lives without meaning and faces suicide without succumbing to it. So I think it's a really...
Can you say that again?
The ultimate hero of absurdism lives without meaning and faces suicide without succumbing to it. That's
beautiful. Dude, I like that a lot. I've always identified with the idea of living out of spite.
Yeah.
And I... Like, suicide has been the philosophical problem of my life. Like, that, it's been every fucking day something I think about. It's affected most aspects of my life, short term and long term. And that is the absurdity of facing, like, life. It's we're born only to die. I really like the idea that comedy is the best example of absurdism.
Right.
Like, that the idea of, like, things that take you away from that reality of the absurdity through laughing is the perfect analogy of absurdism.
Yeah. And there's a whole part of, like, I don't know, I guess it's the meaning of life changes for us now. It's like, as a living anything, the whole purpose is to procreate and continue the species, continue the growth of the species or whatever from a biological standpoint.
Sure.
But when we get to the point where we are this apex being that has dominated this planet in a way that we are very quickly overpopulating.
Yeah,
there's not a drive to do that anymore. There's not a biological need to continue the species.
No, and like, I know for myself, there's no fucking biological drives in my life at all. I feel like you can even see that with crashing testosterone levels, lack of sex on studies they've done. Like, people's drives have changed, right?
Yeah.
We don't need to survive desperately like we used to.
It's like, and I'm sure, like, absolutely people do still have sex for procreation, but really we're out here having sex for fun.
Right.
It's not a need to, to continue your lifeline, your DNA. Like, that's I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are some people that still feel that way. And I feel like it's wild to be that narcissistic in a world where, I mean, it's definitely, it's one thing to be like, oh, I want to, continue, I want to bring someone else into my family. That's different. But to think that your lifeblood deserves to be, we need more of, Tom Segura did a joke about that. We need more of you on this planet, kind of thing.
Fuck you, fuck your family, fuck your entire bloodline. We don't need any people. I love this idea, if some of these movements of ending all people. Like, there's the pro-death positivity movements, and then there's also, like, philosophical groups of, like, no people should exist at all. And I think I like that. There's,
like, the accelerationist theories of like with global warming and shit, of like, fuck it, just speed it all up. We're all gonna burn and die anyway, so let's just fucking cut to the chase.
Now, that's something I wanted to do an episode on at some point, but there also is the accelerationists in political circles, which are like pro-genocide, like everything's fucked up, so we should kill different minorities.
Oh, cool.
I know, it sucks
it's a very fun...
Because I think accelerationism is such a fun idea, right? It sounds so wacky and zany, but then you got these fucking losers trying to murder people. But I also want to point out, I thought the idea that existentialism is when we attribute meaning to the absurdism, where nihilism is when we give it none, is pretty interesting. So like the overlap in difference between existentialism and nihilism, it's very small. They're very similar, right?
Yeah. And you could look this up while I'm talking about it. Did you see the Wikipedia page for the absurd?
Yeah.
So you saw like they had like a chart there where they laid out like the differences between it and nihilism and shit like that. I thought that was a really cool way of showing these different, it was even like existentialism with and without God.
See, that's what I was about to say. I thought it was really cool, but at the same time, it's all so abstract.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't even a chart wouldn't matter, right? Like,
oh yeah, it's a very basic.
Yeah. I was listening to a debate on God stuff. It was a Muslim and a Christian, or an ex-Muslim and a current Christian, right? And the ex-Muslim was saying, like, I can't even argue your points on there being a God because we can't agree on what it is. Like, your
Right.
Your God would be an idea. To me, it's the same as a ghost. How can I accept these points of proof about an idea you are having? It's not an idea I share. You know, like, we see that, I feel like, with a lot of these schools of thoughts, where I don't really understand how you could be a studier, a philosopher on just existentialism without just making up all your own bullshit. Nietzsche is one of the primary original people on existentialism, but it's all his ideas on how he encountered this problem, what his answers were to it, but it's all just his ideas. None of it's like objective or real.
Yeah. There is a strong movement of it in the early mid 20th century of this existentialist philosophy. And it was like it got traction as like a popular, thing for a minute. And then I think, a lot of the research kind of shows that it kind of turned into that. People were realizing like this is all so individual and so it's specific to each person. So this is dumb to like study it like it, like it's a real, I don't know, like it's its own
problem
thing
to address. Right.
Yeah. It's so many different things to so many different perspectives that you can't look at it like it's one thing.
It's a totally internal battle.
Right.
On that Stanford paper we looked at, there was a line in that I found really interesting, that they felt, or this writer thought, the rise of existentialism was tied to and in response to World War II and specifically the Nazis, that the idea of such horrible things entering the world for the first time on a like level that we were all socially conscious affected different schools of philosophy to find those type of answers. I don't know if that's quite the exaggeration or if that's true, but it's definitely interesting how like facing like worldwide problems, things like COVID or global warming, natural, like we see it have different effects on mass consciousness and ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, the way it affects individuals, was very drastically different from the way it affected, the whole. Yeah.
Yeah.
There were many people that I, spoke to about it over the last couple of years that have said, like, honestly, it really wasn't all that bad of a couple of years for me. Like, there's a lot of wild shit going on, but otherwise, like, if I, I've been financially stable and, I've found somebody I care about or whatever. Like it's really wild the way that, that things like that can be so very different. Like obviously it's been a huge problem. COVID has been terrible, but
well, even that though, like that it's a perfect example though, because it's something that's out of our control, right? And how we have the absurd amount of freedom. We have this unlimited amount of freedom in response to it, where it feels like there's not much we can do, but we have so many different internal ways we can respond, and how we respond determines what our true essence is. And like in facing the absurd, it determines who we are and how we will be. Right.
Speaking of that, becoming yourself through experience. I was talking earlier about the limitations of stuff. The word for that they use is called a facticity. So that's the limitation or the condition of freedom. Consists of things one does not choose, like your birthplace, your race, your sexual orientation, but a condition of freedom in the sense that one's values most likely depend on it. However, even in one's facticity, even though one's facticity is set in stone, it cannot determine a person. The value ascribed to one facticity is still ascribed to it freely by that person. Basically, it is saying, that, like, yeah, I'm from Cincinnati, but that doesn't define me. See, that's not a character, it's a part of what made me who I am, but it's not a central part of why I am the way I am.
See, what I really like about that, like one of the hardest parts of the absurdism is our freedom. And that's why part of my definition of existentialism was the cruel freedoms, where like we wake up, like you're from Cincinnati, right?
Yeah.
You can't like be from India even though you wanted to be, right? Like you can't just
change it.
Right. And it feels like, hey, I have no money. I don't have a bus ticket. I don't have a car. I don't have like all this shit. If you want it bad enough, it's like you can't just change the form of your existence and just like be there. But there's so much freedom we're choosing not to access, right? Like if you want it bad enough, you can change near everything. You can't always change everything, but you can. I don't know.
I think it's an equity thing. It's they show, like, I'm trying to think of if I remember who the artist was, but there was a comic kind of panel thing, but it was showing the difference between equity and equality. Equity or equality is when like there's three people that are trying to like see over a fence, and like one's like just like see something going on, and the three people. One of them was already tall enough that they could see over it. Two other people were like shorter. One was much shorter than the second. And the equality is when all of them were given a like one milk crate to stand on. But the shortest person still couldn't see over the fence.
Right.
Equity is where the shortest person gets two of them, gets two milk crates so that they can also see over the fence. The person who could already see doesn't get one at all, and the middle height person gets one. Which is a really basic way of breaking down that concept. But I think that that's also a huge part of when you look at they can't in that moment. That person couldn't change their height. They couldn't change the facticity of their situation, or that they were a short person, but through equity, I don't know. I feel like it's slightly different, but I was going off of.
It's like, all animals aren't made equal, but we try to level the playing field for equal starts kind of thing. But I guess I feel like I'm not saying it how I want, because it feels so guru-y or like The Secret kind of thing. Like where like, oh, you work hard enough, you want it bad enough, you can get it. Like fuck all that shit. But I guess the cruel freedoms of like, every day, like you wake up and it feels like there's all this shit we have to do. Like you have to go to work because if you don't have a home. There's all these things like to get through the day, you have to do. But the reality is that you could choose anything. And it might mean things go very bad. It might be irrational to do it, but it's still a choice we get to make at all times, even though it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah,
I guess that's
you
what
could choose to live in a van and make your money on Instagram, and travel around the world. And that's a fucking hella risk, but there are definitely people that do it. And like you said, it's when you take that chance, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage by doing that. But you have the choice to.
Well, even too, like super depressed, like hopeless, sick, stupid fucks, right? Like every day you could choose to kill yourself, right? So it like even as
you don't
someone,
even have to be depressed. You could just choose to do it whenever.
yeah, like these are choices we make at all times, and you can complain about it all the time, or like the fact that you are complaining about it and not having already left is proof, like to some degree you're choosing to stay too.
Yeah, you found some type of purpose within the meaninglessness.
Yeah, even if it's just complaining about the absurdness.
You are Sisyphus.
Forever toiling away.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's definitely I've considered that before. Like, you know, unless you know I hit it big, or if I find a job that pays more than what I'm doing right now, even there is a certain degree of Sisyphean lifestyle that as a working class person, that's just you're built
garbage
into it. Yeah, and it's gonna, it's one of those. I realize, like, I can start putting money away and like I can try to like invest and whatever, but it's like I'm gonna be working till I die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's no end to it. Even when you're old, like, well, if you have like property to take care of or something. That's not true,
though. It just would take a lot of irrational risk to potentially change that.
Right. Yeah.
Where you still have the freedom to make those choices at any time. It's just they might not
in some NFTs or some GameStop or something,
Yeah, and it most likely wouldn't go good, but there are like safer long-term ways you could too, but it's all levels of risk.
Yeah. I'm about to set up an IRA.
That'd be a smart one,
yeah,
for sure.
It's been proven to be quite useful, and just need to get a few $1,000s to just have on hand. Just to like, okay, now that I have this little safety net, I'm gonna give it away. I'm gonna put it away
to some bank man to make his cut.
You ever see the South Park where Stan gets he has a job or something, and he goes and he puts the money in the bank, and the guy's like, all right, we're just gonna put this in here, and it's gone. Like, what? Like, it's gone now.
That's so.
So we're gonna have to ask you to leave. You're no longer. You don't have any money with us.
No. All right. Here's a question. Right.
Yeah.
All right. The all animals aren't made equal thing. All right. I was watching
But some animals are more equal than others.
Yeah. I was watching a scammer thing, right? And this dude got busted taking all this money from his fans, and he got caught like red-handed. They had proof of him even saying he knew he stole the money, type of thing. Most of his fan base turned on him, and he's on this phone call, and he's like, hey, yeah, I did. I let all these people down, but the reality is a lot of them are still gonna give me money. They're still gonna follow me, and what am I gonna do? Give it back to them? When in reality, I have to look out for myself. Fuck these people. And was like that open on like, fuck you.
That's cold.
Dude, but I appreciate...
I honestly, I get it, but it's cold.
So like, I there's all these like, Joe Rogan I'm a little split on, but like Joe Rogan, Peterson, all these stupid fucks in the news all the time where it's like, is their messaging dangerous and bad? And it's like, most of the time, I fucking think it is. Like, there's some good shit from most of these people, or like, all the messaging of like, oh, it's not okay because COVID misinformation, blah blah blah, like all that shit. Where it's like, all right, even if I agree with you, like who the fuck cares? Like if people are willing to listen, like if people are willing to listen to like Trump say a bunch of stupid fucking lies, like yeah, it really sucks because it changes all of our reality. If those people were that dumb, someone was going to control them anyway, right? Like they weren't going to listen to reason either.
Yeah.
It sucks. I feel like there's a lot of times I can get caught up in like the caring what I think is acceptable or unacceptable for other people to do. And right now I'm on the kick of like reminding myself, like regardless of how I feel about it, because most of it I think is stupid as fuck, is like none of it fucking matters.
Yeah.
Like people are going to make those choices either way.
That's one of the things that I found especially in the last couple of years, as you know, there's just been so much bullshit. And even I think, especially with when COVID started, everyone's glued to the fucking news a lot more often, you know, but it was, so it's not even so much that there's just more shit going on now than usual. People were more in tune. At least I was more in tune to it, to the point where I was just exhausted by it. And you know, after a while, it was just like, what the fuck does it matter? I was even thinking the other day, I saw something about Kyle Rittenhouse in the news, and it was like, I guess they destroyed the gun that he used or something, so that people couldn't sell it for profit or something.
So stupid.
And it was like, and I realized like I really didn't pay any attention to that whole thing, because at that point I was so fucking exhausted by it. It was just like, what the fuck am I gonna do? What is me watching this news gonna do about it?
See, that one I watched every minute of. I feel like we're kind of the opposite in the sense where my baseline is so apathetic that when there's a lot going on, it energizes me more. Like,
okay,
it gets my blood going. Where I'm like, at least I give a fuck about, like, even if it's just the storytelling, like of like the hype of it, whatever.
Yeah,
it gets me to like not fully not care a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I just get so, like, I don't know, like I said, exhausted, I think is the best word for it, because I you know, it's like I can only, you know, freak out about this shit so much, and then like I get angry, and you get frustrated and sad, and then it's like,
but do you ever get angry about like a news story?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, so but it's so much more in the way that like it's anger in the way that like I can't do anything about this. There's a lot of that where it's like this, it's shit that's like it's happening, and it's like, what the fuck?
I do get bothered about injustice stuff, especially like big businesses or like the big guy fucking over the little guy, right? Like I'm always going to be on David's side versus Goliath, right?
Right.
And I definitely do feel some of that, like trying to steal an election, that kind of stuff. I get upset or bothered by, right?
Right.
But I feel like overall, I feel like most people are similar to this, but they won't admit it. Is like we like the drama or turmoil. Like, I might get a little stirred up, but for the most part, it's like, this is fun. Like, look how fucking crazy this bullshit is. Like, we got people murdering each other in the capitals. We got disease. We got famines. We got school shooters. Like, this shit's bonkers as fuck. I love it. And it's like, you don't really want to feel that way. Every story, every new thing that keeps us from thinking about what our purpose is and why we don't want to get out of bed, right? Like, is something that is that distraction, right?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like, I think it's the managerial part of my brain where like, okay, we have to get like from at least from this perspective of like, I've walked into many restaurants on the brink of collapse or that were just getting started, and it's like, all right, let me help you try to build this up. It's like, let's do this, and let's get this in place and this in place. Okay. And we just gotta hold steady and rock like this for a minute. We just gotta hold the ship tight, just keep it going. And then something will fuck up, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, you had one job. Like, just don't do that shit. And like, you get it back together, and then like more people keep doing different shit. And it's like this is why we can't have nice things.
See,
this is why it's like you get to a point where it's like everything could be so chill if people weren't fucking up and doing crazy shit.
But why is there an expectation? And I mean,
it's less of an expectation, more of a hope.
Yeah, I don't have any hope.
Because I definitely don't expect it anymore.
Yeah, but I guess like the idea, like you're trying to Biden it, right? Like if you were the manager, you're trying to build back better. And the reality is like,
yeah,
I'm all for it. I love it. But I don't like, nothing's changing. It's just like we find where we fit and how to survive in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Existentialism. That's it. Find where we fit and try to survive.
Yeah. Survival mode.
And it is really wild. Actually, the next point I wanted to bring up about existentialism is rationality, because it really is. It's an unrational concept when you think about how meaningless everything is. Like, why do we continue? Why do we, survive? When in an animal's mind, like a picture like a deer, and like in their mind, what the meaning of their life would be. It's so micro compared to I don't know. I guess maybe the deer are looking up at the night sky and looking at the stars and the cosmos and understanding evolution and shit, but I don't think that's really the case. When we're at this point where we're looking at all this shit that we can see and we're realizing how futile everything that we do is. It's all so selfish and for us,
all the deer in the world, they're all staring at the moon at the exact same time as a tear rolls down their face. And they say to themselves, build back better. Build back better.
Oh, I want to see that political ad. Oh, God damn it.
So, but there is, I do think there's an argument of like a rational self versus that emotional self, because it is the existential nature is purely emotional.
Yeah. So that's, that's our entire, that's what I think rationality is. It's the lack of emotion.
For me, the tricky part, and I think a lot of people face this too, our true form doesn't always fit with our rational self, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of times our true nature, if we were being most honest and true to who we are naturally, right? Mm-hmm. For a lot of people, that's being a piece of shit, right? That's being the animal. It's being the person who steals the juicer, right? It's being the person who's more of a chaotic than a neutral good, right? Like,
right.
And there's the level of rationality where I feel like it can either spin you up or spin you down, like the metaphysics shit, where you can use the rationality as a way to go to or from the emotional. But I think a lot of people, and especially myself, if I was true to my most true form, I either wouldn't be here or I'd be a piece of shit all the time. Yeah. And you have to like fight a certain level, not all of it, but like a certain level of your true nature with rationality.
Yeah. So this is another one pulled from the wiki. I thought this was a good post. I think I edited this one a little bit, but
stop crediting wiki. They should be crediting us.
Yeah.
The Trashcats.
Well, I just want to post that I'm reading a thing instead of just talking out of my ass. So existentialists oppose defining excellence.
We did other research.
I read things too. Existentialists oppose defining human beings as primarily rational, and therefore oppose both positivism and rationalism. Existentialism asserts that people make decisions based on subjective meaning rather than pure rationality. Yeah. The rejection of reasons as the source of meaning is a common theme of existentialist thought, as is the focus of anxiety and dread that we feel in the face of our own radical free will and our awareness of death. Kierkegaard, who was another philosopher from the early 20th century, did existentialist shit. Kierkegaard advocated rationality as a means to interact with the objective world, like the natural sciences. But when it comes to existential problems, reason is insufficient. And his quote that I thought was really beautiful is that human reason has boundaries.
I think some would argue that, like the extra, like scientific-minded reason people might argue that reason should not or shouldn't or doesn't have boundaries. But I think that's correct.
But human reason has boundaries. So
I think a lot of people might argue it doesn't, but I would agree.
No, I think it's very clear that it does. We are people of emotion. We are. Even
we are.
Animals in general. They they have emotion. We have a.
So but there's a lot of people who try to deny that or science their way out of that, or even a psychopath might be the natural or like the unnatural exemption of that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why sociopathological behavior is deemed so wild and it's so taboo, because it's so anti what the herd is. It's so opposite of what the rest of us really are.
I heard a good one recently where they were talking about different psycho shit. The idea of like when you're full on psychopath, I always get them backwards. That's when, we decide to lock you up because everyone dislikes you so much. But
yeah.
if you're a narcissist, it just means you're so unbearable to be around, we're going to give you a label. Because in reality, you're not actually going to, like if it ends there, you're not actually harming anyone. But we just have all found you so annoying to be around. We give you a diagnosis.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what a lot of diagnoses are. It's like, even if you're only hurting yourself, but you're still not hurting anyone else, if you're annoying enough, we're going to give you a label with some medicine attached.
Yeah. In the newer Reno 911 thing, there is a part where Trudy's taking pills. He pulls out all these pills, and they're like, "How do you get all these?" And they're like, "Well, here's what you got to do. You got to call him up and say, I fear that I'm going to hurt myself and others." The others part is important. You have to say others.
Emphasis on the others.
Yeah, emphasis on the others.
They don't care
I'm
that
at
much.
risk of hurting myself and others.
They're not too worried about you hurting yourself. That's funny.
Yeah, I think as a whole, we are, like I said, I think we're emotional beings. Even the most, scientifically minded people of us, can't deny that. Just because you try to focus on learning rational things in the world doesn't mean that you are a strictly rational being.
So when is being rational untrue to ourselves, though, of our form?
I think it is still part of us to have reason, but I think it's different from a lot of animals in the animal kingdom.
It's like if we deny our emotions. Right?
Yeah.
Like
if you deny your emotions for anything other than self-preservation.
That's a good rule.
So in the animal kingdom, you'll see, animals that will stop themselves from doing things because of, self-preservation. They might, let a smaller, predator might let a larger one have, the hunt that they just killed. Because for fear for themselves.
Or the cheetah's not following the gazelle off a cliff into the alligator pool.
Right. So, but I don't think that's so much of it is a rational thinking, but it's still through self-preservation. And I'm sure there are some instances of this. I don't study it enough to know. You study animals' behaviors enough to know that this is completely a full truth, but I feel like that most of the time you don't see that in other animals. In humans, we have this more of a society that we have built. We live in a society. We have this. We live in a society. We have this almost obligation to think a certain way, and it's
where does the obligation come from?
I think it comes from from society. I think it comes from from the time that we started building cities and empires, for that matter. Just we became we settle on rules to regulate ourselves.
It's an obligation to ourselves then.
Yeah. And even if it's something that you are, like it's the thing that stops you from stealing food when you're hungry for something and you're in the grocery store or whatever and you're like, I could eat this right now and throw it away and throw away the packaging and no one would know. Or
just being hungry and eating other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someday. I think I brought this up when we talked about cannibalism. One of my friends that used to work at the Federal Wildlife Protection Services or whatever, they were doing a lot of work with like manatees who were protected, and they were endangered for a little while, and now they're just protected because their species is doing really well. And he said, it's going to be within our lifetime probably that we'll be able to eat manatee again. Because it was a thing in the there's Escoffier's cookbook from like the late 1800s that had recipes for manatee in it. But he said he was looking at a baby manatee that it was dead, and they pulled it up to do an autopsy and try to figure out what killed it. And he's looking at this baby manatee out on this table, and he in the back of his mind he's just thinking, God, this thing looks fucking delicious.
Dude, I actually cannot imagine that being good. But that's one of those things, like, I don't know. But
it's very lean meat. There's not a lot of fat involved in a manatee.
They just look like a ball of fat floating in the water.
Right, but they're mostly, it's like their meat is very thin and lean, which is why they come in from the Gulf during the wintertime, because the Gulf gets too cold. So they look for like either natural like springs, or they look for like power plants and shit that have like warmer water surrounding it, and they nest near there during the wintertime.
Yeah.
Because they're too, they don't have enough fat to keep themselves warm.
See, I feel like out of a non-rational line of thinking, like we would never eat manatees again, right? No matter how prosperous they were and how many other animals just like that we might eat. Like a tuna, a big tuna is not that dissimilar.
Right.
But because we've put, because they were endangered and we put this emphasis on them, we put them into captivity, we brought back a bit, like we're not going to start eating them now. And even more so just because they look fucking cute, right?
They are very precious.
Like opposed to an uglier animal.
Just a big gray potato with flippers.
Yeah, like we would eat the other animal if it was uglier.
That's probably true.
Like same numbers.
I feel like my curiosity as a chef somewhat outweighs that. It's not like I can say that I would eat manatee all the time, even if supplies were good. But manatee was supposedly it's one of the only animals that has multiple different flavor profiles through it. Like pork is one of those, like different cuts of pork taste somewhat different, or they have different textures or whatever. Manatee is one that I forget what it is. Like part of it tastes like fish, and then another part tastes like pork, and another part tastes like chicken texture, or like beef or something stupid. And it's like, oh my God, I gotta try that shit. Make a wonderful soup.
I just don't give a fuck about meat. Like I don't know. I just stopped caring.
I think, like I said, I think it's just the chef part of me that
you know what I've had
curious
for over a third of my meals for a week straight.
What?
Oatmeal and ice cream.
It's solid.
It's been at least one of my like 2 meals every day.
Now, can I ask, is it together?
Oh yeah. No.
Okay.
No, here's what I do: make the oatmeal with milk, put a bunch of peanut butter in, whip that up. And then I get a separate mug full of ice cream. And you do a medium scoop of ice cream and a little bit of oatmeal.
I'm here for it. That sounds great.
Makes me eat oatmeal.
Mix ice cream into it and a shitload of peanut butter.
And I put on 10 pounds this week.
It stopped being healthy.
I don't know.
It's like, I'm gonna eat this spinach salad, but I'm gonna put bacon and bacon fat dressing all over it.
See, but if you think about it the other way, it is healthy because I was gonna eat twice as much ice cream. Now I'm eating half the ice cream and half the oatmeal.
Yeah. Actually, something I've been having for the last couple days was I make Chipotle peanut butter noodles. It's like I think like a pad thai ish with the peanut and like the peanut sauce kind of thing, but it's the Chipotle spice, and then like you can use instant the fucking ramen noodles or whatever. I had some udon noodles that I've had for a fucking grip now that I had to use up. So I used those. It's fucking excellent. Just a can of the fucking Chipotle peppers and adobo sauce, and then you mix in the peanut butter. Or use pro tip, use peanut butter powder and make like a paste out of it. So fucking good.
That does sound good. I like peanut sauces a lot.
Very, very inexpensive meal that you can make a shitload of at one time and eat for a week.
Man, I had Gold Star today.
How was that?
Disgusting. Does not compare to Skyline. Holy shit. It's been a while.
I heard somebody growing up, they said Skyline's Gold Star's bullshit. It's just bologna sauce.
I heard someone on somebody posted something. I was like, when you're born in Cincinnati, you you go to the Grand Sorting Hat and you either get Gold Star, Skyline, or La Rosa's. It's like what? Graders, whatever.
Oh, god damn it.
All right, so what about to be or not to be bullshit?
Oh. Well, I wrote in here as a prompt for us to talk about it. Just what does it mean to be?
That definitely ties in with form essence.
Yeah, it's you're and I remember learning this in I think it was 7th grade. But I remember we were talking about like different weird parts of sentences that we don't really think of. So like, a regular sentence structure has to have like a noun and a verb, and it's so we were testing that by putting different things together. And one of the words was be or being. And they said, and the teacher was like, oh, that's a verb. To be something, that is a verb. It's an action that is either a passive or a kinetic action that you're taking or something is doing. But I always thought that was interesting when you consider like what does it mean to be, like you are active. It means you are alive, you are sentient.
See, I'll let other people be, but I am.
Fuck you.
They can do what they want. I'm here. I'm established. I'm eternal. Fuck everyone else.
And you always will be.
Always am. Immortal, cursed to live forever.
I think we nailed that. That's enough.
All right, I have one. So. We talked about the responsibility involved due to the cruel amount of freedom, whether it's a real freedom or perceived, right? Like, feels like you can do anything, you can't, but you can. That problem, that's part of the absurdity. And living in good faith would be being true to who we are, having ownership of our choices, and being true to ourselves, right?
Right.
I also like this idea of like, bad faith, not being true to who we are, not taking ownership of that responsibility or our choices. But I also like the idea, like you hear the, what is it? The freeze, the reactions, the blah, 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 blah. The 3 reactions. No
fucking idea. Newton's laws of motion?
No. No, the fear, flight, or
fight or flight?
Yes. Oh my God. Or freeze, right? That's always like the third one they talk like with trauma stuff. There's like, there's the third reaction of freeze, right? So which is valid. I'm not making
That's what my cat does when I yell at her. She just stops. And then looks at me and continues doing the thing that she was fucking up.
always. And not criticizing the freeze part, but there is, like, in life. So the example was, like, let's say someone goes to hold your hand, right?
Yeah.
If you
Do I know this person?
yes, you're on and you're like fifth date and you're about to be official. They reach out to hold your
I
hand.
thought you were just talking about a stranger.
No, a strange cat reaches out to hold your hand. But all right,
Yeah.
you know, freezing can be valid, but whatever. The point, just in life in general, choosing not to grasp the hand, but also not to pull away is still a choice.
Right.
No choice is still a choice. In doing to live without choosing, to not make the choices that are most true to ourselves, to not pursue your purpose, all of that is also living in bad faith.
Can I tell you that you just quoted Rush?
I don't need to know.
If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.
And I mean, you can see that down the line with old people who are dying, filled with regret, the lost elections, to the person who dates someone they don't love, like all of those things. Like those are still, you're not living honest to how you feel. You're denying your emotional reality.
You've made a choice to be here.
Yeah.
Or you know, and the argument can be made that like, oh, but there is a risk that, you know, some people are trapped, or like they're trapped in something, and if they were to, you know, change it, or they were to, you know, get out of a situation, it makes things worse. And it's like there's still the choice is there to not take that course. As unfortunate as that may be, they still have the option of making things worse by acting on other things.
I do think trying is always more fulfilling than not trying, right? Because there's like, it's the same reason I bought a grill, right? It wasn't about the money.
I'm just going to try this out. I want to see what all the hype's about grilling.
It was if
George Foreman really seems to like it.
I meant a tooth grill. My Paul Wall, not my charcoal.
Yeah.
Because it was if I never bought it, I would always wonder, right?
Yep. Maybe I'm a grill kind of guy.
And then I realized I'm too much of an addict. I can't not do something with my mouth. Yeah. Right? Like I have to eat.
Salivating all over the goddamn place.
I got vapes. I got dips. I got drinks. There's always smoke or spit coming out of my mouth.
Just imagine trying to eat with a grill in.
Oh, I did.
And it's fucking. That sounds disgusting. That sounds terrible.
It was fun though. I still wear it to the gas station every once in a while.
You know, on special occasions, you know, weddings, just family functions, funerals.
Just to flex on them, you know.
Oh, man.
Here's one I liked. There was this guy I've been listening to a lot, Sean Carroll. He does the Mindscape podcast. He was the guy, I remember sending it to you like 2 years ago. He was the guy that I first learned a lot of metaphysics stuff when he was on Rogan. It was like one of the only really, really good ones that year. And I remember we talked about that episode. Mm-hmm. He was the guy talking about the spinning up and spinning down of metaphysics.
Yeah, I super don't remember who that was, though.
Gotcha. He's really good. You'd like the Mindscape one. He was talking with or about a musician who played with Miles Davis, and they were talking about the performance after. And this musician played a note like really off, like fucked up. And it wasn't like you could hide it type of thing. Like it was like just actually wrong, right? And they were talking about degrees of freedom, because even though he had made that mistake, Miles Davis was so talented, he could choose to right that wrong.
That's how jazz was invented.
That's jazz, but
Sorry, continue.
I just like the idea of that in life correcting the wrong notes.
Right.
Our free will is not that we can choose to make things how we want them, but we choose to find the corrections of what's wrong. Like that is our existentialism, that things are wrong and we're choosing to find how to make them right.
And that's also, I feel like, choosing your battles in that. It's the, you can't exhaust yourself trying to do everything. I mean, you can try, but you're exhausting yourself. And some people have more of a drive for that to like, even if it's just like trying to do a bunch of like learning how to do a bunch of different shit. It's like, it's stuff that's good for you overall. And like you grow, I'm sure, because of it. But boy, that sounds fucking exhausting.
Well, there's so much like wrong too, right? There's so many wrong notes. Like you could argue there's more wrong notes than right notes in our songs, right? And that's like the tension that we live in is that feeling of trying to place meaning on something that very well may not have any. That absurdism is the tension we live in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fucked up.
It's a funny joke.
Real funny joke that God's playing on us.
Good. Some ha-ha. There.
You mentioned earlier the living in spite thing, and I feel like I think
straight George
for people that might not even recognize what we're talking, like how that, I feel like it comes across as like a strictly like an angry thing. This just spite in general has that connotation, and I think in your case maybe in my case too, it sometimes it does. I think in your case maybe more often than mine.
Yeah, fuck everyone else. Like I'm gonna get mine.
I think the living in spite as a more wholesome and positive outlook can be even just as simple as like, I think of like John Locke from Lost, where he's like, "Don't tell me what I can't do." Like he says that's like a very like a motif for him is like, well, like fuck you, I'm gonna do it anyways. Whenever there's even a doubt in your own head of like, oh, fuck, this is a burden on me or something is a problem in my life. And it's like, well, fuck that. I'm going to solve it then.
I mean, the key to that is don't tell me. He's talking about himself. When it's living in spite of yourself, that's when it's wholesome.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's like, okay, well, I was trying to think of a better idea for that specific example, but when I was moving into this house and it was like everything kept going wrong on move day. It was like there's so many things and I was just fucking exhausted and I was done. And then some shit broke and it was like the last straw for me. And I went into this fit of like God is acting against me. Like if God is real, he's an asshole and here's why. And here's why I'm stronger than that. I'm stronger than or my will is stronger than the problems that I face. And in that moment, there would have been no way of telling me otherwise because I was so motivated by that to continue. Like I could have stopped for the night and we could have,
gone home.
Yeah.
Like fuck this
fuck
house.
This whole house.
I'm so angry at this movie.
I'm walking to Memphis.
I'm going to listen to Metallica's Wherever I May Roam for the rest of my life. Just wander the streets because this fucking movie.
Like we would have been like, we would have had to pay for another day for the U-Haul and all this other shit. And it was like, fuck that. Yeah, not worth it. We're going to finish this now. I'm going to do this today. There's no fucking way.
Cut off my nose to spite
Goddamn
my face
right.
kind of thing.
And my body was demolished the next day.
Yeah, and no, you're right though. It has real meaning when it's doing something in spite of yourself, right?
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing.
Dude, like I feel like even on this podcast, there might be times we may sound smarter than we are, but a lot of the times we probably sound pretty dumb. In spite of myself, I learn things and try to be better, but like I'm a stupid piece of shit.
In spite of that, you got your grade 10 and you're doing good.
Yeah. Right. Like in spite of myself, I tried dropping out a week before high school somehow. I graduated anyway, right? I both tried and then didn't try to get through college. Somehow I got through. Went to jail first.
You got out.
I got out. I got that degree.
You righted that wrong note.
Yeah. We're all doing shit in spite of ourselves, right? It just sucks. I just really do feel like a lot of people, their true self is a piece of shit, right? And you have to like fight that. And it sucks because then you can't always be true to yourself either.
Yeah.
That's how I always felt with those, like my first 30-day coin or whatever, be true to thyself, be true. It's like, that's bullshit. If I'm being true to myself, I'm going to die.
If I'm being true to myself, I'm out there with a needle in my arm right now. I'm not in here with you.
Yeah, like I can't. Yeah, like these fucking losers in here, like praying and talking about dumb shit they did. Fuck all that. Like you have to be true to yourself, but not, and like course correct to change the notes. You have to use the rationalism to find the answer of purpose to your existential dread.
Everything's masturbatory. Nothing matters.
No, it's all max feel good, right?
So, like I said, even when you're depriving yourself of something, you're doing it because you'll feel in the hopes that you'll feel better about it later. Yeah,
long term, right? Even caring about people, it's because we get out joy out of caring about them. It's because they make us feel good. We feel good about who we are because we care about that. Like I just think we're all so much more selfish than we think. And I think I'm becoming more and more of a psycho too. Where
I wanted to leave a pause there in case we decided to take this part out, but we can totally leave it in as far as I'm concerned. As far as like the very selfish things go, I was just like, I'm supposed to go to a funeral tomorrow. It's downtown. Okay. I don't want to go.
Well, you have a great excuse.
Well,
so. There's a snowstorm. There's a nationwide snowstorm.
It's not that fucking bad, and it's in Detroit. It's like, it's not.
Your brakes are bad. Your tires are bad. Your battery didn't start. I can do this all day, bro.
It's my previous employee, and her husband died.
Do they make you money anymore?
They never made me money.
There we go. You said it was an employee.
I was their manager. They just worked for me.
You were there.
They did things so that I didn't have to. That's not making me money.
Sure.
That's making my job easier. It's making my life easier.
I'm being very cynical. But, I mean, that's partially true. Obviously
they were making the person over top of me money who paid me.
All right, well, let's break it down. What level of debt do you feel you owe to them?
I mean, really none.
Let's do the math.
None, but I feel bad for her because she just lost her husband.
Will you feel better about yourself?
That's the thing, is I will. I will feel better about myself I will feel better, about myself for going. I will feel bad for not going, but the question then is, how long will I feel bad about it? Is this going to matter in a month?
Not long.
Am I going to feel bad about it?
Like,
is it going to be one of those things that like, I don't think about it like ever, and then very occasionally it's one of those things that pops up like right before you go to bed, like, damn, that was really shitty for me to not go into that.
Well, I get part of the question, I think, to that is, do you want to be the person that always goes to the funerals?
Do you want to be the person that? No.
But do you want to be the person who has other people's back and shows up? Because I mean, I'll be honest. My thing is, unless like we're really, really close, I'm not going to your funeral.
See, we're not. I wouldn't say that we're really, really close. There was definitely a camaraderie. There was a shared trauma that we went through with this restaurant.
Sure, but I'm saying, like, I'm the type of person, I won't have your back. I won't show up for you unless I really care, right? Do you want... I think the key to, if it's going to bother you long term, is if you see yourself as that person or not. If you see yourself as the person like, hey, I'm showing up for my people all the time, I'm there, but if we're not close, I don't really give a fuck, then it's not going to bother you. But if you see yourself as the person who's showing up for anyone that asks you to be there, anyone you've been around the last 10 years, you just want to be that person, then it will. Let me tell you,
here's the thing. Here's more of why I think it bothers me. When I do want to be that person that's there, it's not even for like, not for everybody, of course, but you know, at least we are at least as close as we were. It's going to bother
you.
So
because you believe you're in the hallway with everyone. They were in your hallway, so they still are.
So she reached out to us with the time and date and the place for the funeral arrangements. It wasn't like, she told me her husband died and then I asked about it. It was, she reached out to us.
She reached out. Yeah.
I also know that none of my other coworkers are going. No one else that worked there is going to go. That's the bigger weight on top of it, is then I'm like, for feeling like I don't want to go. And it's like, this snowstorm thing isn't really an excuse because it's not going to be that bad.
Well, you'll find it. You'll find out tomorrow.
Yeah, they're at this point, they're like, it might be another inch, it might be 8. We don't know. So that's always fun.
Yeah. I think you are that person, though. I think you probably are. Whether you want to be or not.
In spite of myself.
You is the person who you're going to end up showing up.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Unless there's like a valid reason.
Which means I have to leave work.
Yeah, you don't. Well, it sounds like you don't put forks in the road or corridors in your hallway. It's a straight shot. Gang's all there. I mean, that's a good way to be. I just can't feel that. I think I'm very bitter. But I don't. The more like straight thinking I'm becoming, the less I care.
Gotta do some gay thinking. Some gay thinking. What? Well, you said all the straight thinking you do makes you not care.
Oh, shit. I can't feel shit, man. Like, I can't imagine. How long ago did you work with that person?
It was last year.
When's the last time you talked to him?
It would have been last summer.
I don't think there's a person I've talked to a summer ago that I would ever answer a phone call or a text from. I don't think, maybe like a cousin I don't dislike. That's like the farthest. If I haven't talked to anyone in the last 2 months, like if I haven't talked to you in the last 2 months, I don't give a shit about it.
I know that's not true because we would go longer than that without reaching out to each other.
But that's part of what I was saying. Like back then, it was more out of like dysfunction, right? And the more I'm thinking clearly, the less I care, right? Because even back then, I feel like 6 months could have gone by and I could have very much cared about someone. And now it's like a couple months go by. If I didn't talk to you, there was a reason. If you didn't talk to me, there was a reason. I can't hold on to it.
While I also feel that somewhat, I do feel, like the open line of communication goes both ways thing. Mm-hmm. There is still a, she's living her life, I'm living mine. It's when she reached out to me is when I'm thinking, oh, I should be there for her, kind of thing.
I think that's fair. I think that's probably true.
I just don't want to drive to Detroit
even as I'm
tomorrow.
saying that. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of because I definitely have lots of connections where like the expectation is like, we talk once a year, or we're like,
yeah,
but yeah, I think you're probably right.
Yeah, I'm gonna fucking drive to Detroit tomorrow. God damn it!
You're no.
I got
Mormon
a full tank of
dates.
gas.
What else do you got to do?
Work and make money. Go home. That's the other one is like,
fuck money. You're just putting it in an IRA
I'm just gonna
anyway.
save it up and give it to someone else.
Just making the man some money.
The other one is like, how long do I stay? Because I know I'm not going to know anyone there besides her. And she's going to have her, I'm sure her family or kids are going to be there. I'm going to meet everyone. And then it's like, I'm not staying to watch the man get put in the ground. You know what I mean?
Well, I feel like you have to stay.
I don't think I do.
You just don't go to the after thing.
I think it's a make an appearance and you to the visitation. That's
okay. Yeah, then you can book you. Yeah, that's fair. Just live.
Go in there. I'll get on Twitch on my phone and hey, what's up, everybody? What's up, gamers? I'm here at a funeral. Let's check out this body real quick. God damn it. Oh, God damn it. Can you get a ban from Twitch for showing a dead body, for live streaming a funeral? Live streaming a funeral, showing a corpse at a funeral?
It depends on the level of gore.
No, I mean, like, if they're dressed up in a coffin or whatever.
I don't know, because you can sometimes show a dead person, but it depends. I have a feeling if it was done genuinely,
not in the way that I described it.
Probably
What's
not.
up, fuckers?
But they couldn't show even evidence from Rittenhouse trial on Twitch. It got banned. Yeah, it was a big deal at the time. Any other big existential thoughts?
No. Other than maybe shouts out to our boy Matt in the studio at mattinthestudio.com. Yo,
Matt, who day, baby? Bengals gonna win the big game. The Bengals.
You could have just said football and sports in general. Stupid as fuck.
No, specifically.
But coming up, the fucking Olympics start tomorrow. And I'm going to be following.
Who cares? Oh my God. I mean, that's the more fun one, but the Olympics is stupid.
I'm also absolutely yes, but curling is amazing.
All right. Well, I don't understand. How can people like football? Like, the idea is like, oh, big, strong men run ball, right? And we like it because it's so violent, right? Like, that's the draw. But the same people who like football, the general fans, like, they don't want to watch two men kill each other in a cage.
I think the there's a stark difference between the two.
I agree, but it's bullshit because they're lying.
So what
to
you're
themselves.
saying is
they're lying.
Fuck football. We need national cities to have the teams of men who fight to the death in cage matches.
UFC, I'll take it. It's the best
closest we got to a full Coliseum.
But I want Coliseum games. I want to watch men die fighting tigers every week. And I want to bet my paycheck on it. Like, why are we denying that's what we all want?
I'll do two men fight to the death. Don't bring the tiger into this. Tiger didn't do nothing wrong.
Pump them full of cocaine and let's watch the real Bengals play. Dude, I mean, think of how cool, like a gymnasium.
Put all the quarterback in a cage with a tiger.
Gorillas. We got gorillas fueled full of steroids and meth, and we have 5 dudes, like, each with a different weapon, try to take on the gorilla. I mean, that's what we all want. We want real violence. We don't want football.
This man's against zoos.
I'm also against football.
We're making a list. Dishonorable mention, football.
I'm making a point, though. It is goofy. Like, we like sports that are violent, but not too violent. It's dumb.
Oh, God damn it.
I want real violence.
Just saying, I'm hoping for Sweden to take the gold away from Canada this year. I'm watching I think it was the Japanese women's team did really good last year. We'll see how they do this year. Getting up there, getting the gold. We'll make it happen.
Curling's just memorable.
Curling's amazing. There's nothing like
And
when I was in
definitely makes-
Canada and I walked into a bar late one night and it's a different year, Winter Olympics, and there's fucking 4 grown men at the bar screaming at the fucking television while this puck slowly slides across the ice. Just
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it's some pretty existential stuff. It definitely makes me question my life choices. As that puck slowly rolls across the ice, I'm like, what the fuck did I do with my life?
you think over the course of a month, how many hours am I going to waste watching footage from curling games?
That's funny, man.
I think that's good for today.
Anything? Yeah. Our next one I'm pretty excited about. The universe.
Yeah.
25.
That's pretty wild shit.
Yeah, we're gonna poke some holes in some bullshit and talk about a bunch of mice that died in Mice Paradise. So,
but for now, thanks again for listening, everybody. Thank you to Approaching Human for the use of his music. You can find his work on SoundCloud at Approaching-Human.
thanks, John. He's got some cool stuff on the way too.
You can check out the show page at Trashcats. I haven't fucked that up in a long time. On Instagram for news and arts from the show. Also check out Facebook for the memes. Also, I wanted to say thank you to everyone that's been sharing the show, or definitely.
Yes.
We've said it before. We'll say it again. We would continue doing the show even if no one was listening to it. But it's cool to know that other people like it, or at least they're checking it out, even if they don't like it.
Definitely. If you're super bored, you can check out my trash yard on Instagram at Skyzix, SKYZICX. I have some clown vomit in the sky coming up. It's gonna
floating
be cool.
clown graveyard.
Yes, and all right, let's shout out our honorable mentions one more time. Zoo DNA, Fuck Football, Watch Arcane. Hit us up on email or social medias. We can give you the link to the private art club Discord that our homies started. The Painting the Poet by the artist's name, who I'm going to forget again. Renee Lanes. Yeah. We'll share all the artists. We're going to share your mirror. That turned out awesome.
And, stay tuned for a song by Austin Farwell.
Yeah.
It's gonna be the end of it.
Go with that seed track.
Just go out on that. And now, Evening Sky by Austin Farwell.